Okay, it looks like that we're back live. Sorry, guys, for that issue. It was just some issues with the internet problems, some technical issues as well. So I do apologize for that. Hopefully you guys can see me. We are back here for the second attempt at this live stream. I can only apologize for the technical difficulties that we've been having. Hopefully that won't be an issue for the rest of the stream. We'll just have to hope that that continues. So I do apologize if you are joining me now. If you were part of the last stream, I do apologize for that. Hopefully that will be better now. We are back for qualifying, French Grand Prix qualifying. So thank you for coming along. Of course, I might have some issues with seeing some of the comments in the stream as well. So I do apologize if that is still proving to be an issue. But back to the action. We have 14.5 minutes left in Q1. Just watching Pierre Gasly on board right now, a driver that does need to have a strong weekend. So hopefully for his sake, that can continue to be the case. So coming up now to turn 10. But guys, of course, if you are watching the stream, of course, if you were watching the stream before, I should mention welcome back. I do apologize again for the technical issues. Let me know in the comments your predictions for qualifying for the top 5. I haven't seen any comments yet. That might be owing to the technical difficulties that I've been having. So do get them in. And then hopefully I'll read some of the best ones out on the show. And again, of course, some issues with Google not allowing us to have a timer anymore. No idea why. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to keep you updated on the time as well. Anyway, 13 minutes, 40 seconds left in the session. We've got Pierre Gasly on a lap right now. We've got Charles Leclerc going purple in the first sector. The Ferraris have been rather good in the tighter areas of this lap, but of course they are giving up a lot of time, especially to the Red Bulls in that middle sector, as Gasly goes over the line to do a 1:33.6 to go top of the pile so far. Only 4 times so far. Stroll, Mick Schumacher and Vettel. Charles Leclerc does a 1:31.7, which is by far the fastest lap that we have seen so far this weekend. So the Ferraris look like they have turned their engine up a bit. Might have been running on a lower power mode in practice. Perez goes P2 on a 1:32.3. And just a reminder, guys, if you are joining the stream and you weren't already aware, Carlos Sainz, Kevin Magnussen will be starting from the back of the grid. We may not see either of them in this qualifying session, owing to the fact that they are starting at the back, that both of them have had to take new power unit components, and it looks like both of them have gone full whack on that one to make the most of the situation. Of course, you have a 10-place grid penalty for your first offence for a new part, depending on the part, of course. In some cases, you might as well go the full whack and take more, because it's obviously less punishing than taking them over the course of the season. We've got Shiro in the chat. Hi, Shiro. Hope you're well. Again, apologies if you were following me earlier and there were issues on the stream. I do apologize for some technical difficulties. Unfortunately, not much I can do about them at the moment. So hopefully it's not too bad for you guys watching wherever you are around the world, watching from beautiful Colorado, no less. So sounds absolutely wonderful, Shiro. Hopefully the scenery is lovely over there. Never been to Colorado myself. Certainly would love to go in the future. Certainly like to go and visit quite a lot of places in the future. But yeah, Colorado sounds pretty sweet. So yeah, hopefully you are well. Hopefully you're enjoying qualifying. And guys, let me know your predictions in the chat. For those of you that are able to follow this, as we've got 11 minutes and 30 seconds to go. Currently, Charles Leclerc on the front of the order at the moment. This is only Q1, with Max Verstappen now on his first flying lap. Looked incredibly fast in practice 3. And of course, just a quick recap at the moment for how qualifying works. We have 3 sessions, Q1, Q2, Q3. 18 minutes in Q1, which is what we're going through right now. The slowest 5 drivers will be eliminated from qualifying, 2 of which we expect to be Sainz and Magnussen. So be just the bottom 3 if we exclude them. And of course, Q2, 15 minutes, then the next slowest 5 will be eliminated, and then the top 10 will battle it out in Q3 for pole position in the last 12 minutes. But Shiro saying, all good, YouTube is a bit hit and miss. Yeah, I can only apologise for that. I have no idea what's going on. For some reason, my internet is terrible at the moment. I know there's been some issues with the stream software I've been using as well. That might be causing it. It's a bit beyond my pay grade. So hopefully it's not too bad for you guys. Again, I do apologise for the technical difficulties. Hopefully we'll have that sorted out by the time we go to the next live stream, which of course will be the race review podcast tomorrow night. Verstappen comes across the line now and he goes P2. 1:31.8, a 10th and a half off of Charles Leclerc. So that's encouraging for Ferrari because Verstappen and Red Bull looked like they had a huge advantage after FP3, but at least Ferrari looked like it might have turned their engine up a little bit more. We've got Lando Norris in the McLaren. McLaren have taken a raft of upgrades this weekend, so they're hoping to be much more competitive. Norris in P4, Ricciardo P7. So Lewis Hamilton, maybe a podium again, might be in the offing. It'll be his third in a row if he does it this weekend. I believe it'd be his third in a row. Might be wrong. Sounds about right. No, actually, no, I am wrong. He's already got 3 in a row. It'd be his 4th in a row in 2022. So he's certainly found his form again. Currently P6. Behind him, George Russell in the other Mercedes. 10th and a half of him. So them two going around their business nicely. Is Fernando Alonso getting a beautiful toe coming up to turn 10 off of Max Verstappen as he tries to set his first flying lap in the Alpine. And big weekend for Alpine. They'll be hoping to go well this weekend at their home circuit. Comfortably the 4th fastest so far this season. Tied 4th in the championship with McLaren. They'll be hoping to have a big weekend. But McLaren, of course, bring in the upgrades. Maybe they've closed the deficit. Maybe Alpine's opportunity to close up on them might have evaded them. We'll have to wait and see. But at the moment, Alonso going well on his first flying lap. Yuki Tsunoda pops in at P8. Bottas in the Alfa Romeo in P5. Alfa Romeo really need an upsurge in form. They look like they've fallen back a little bit. But we'll wait to see. Fernando Alonso gets a bit of a toe off of Lance Stroll's Aston Martin. Well, this time put him P5 for Alonso. Just over a second off Leclerc. Slots him in nicely as Esteban Ocon, the home driver for this weekend, along with Pierre Gasly, of course, P9. So a solid start for Alpine in this session at the moment. Bottom 5, we're expecting Sainz and Magnussen, as already mentioned, to go out, as they will both be starting from the back of the grid. Anyway, we may see Sainz do 1 lap just to solidify P19. I don't think Haas believe Magnussen could beat Sainz in 1 lap of qualifying. Let's see, Max Verstappen was on a bit of a lap there. Had to avoid his teammate in traffic, saying on the radio, what was Checo doing there on the straights? And yeah, Hamilton also having a bit of issue with traffic. And this is the thing around this track. Traffic seems to be a problem at this circuit. It's a very flowing circuit, and if your rhythm is disrupted, it can really cost you time around this circuit. So it's very important to try and get a clean lap in when you can. Just looking at Carlos Sainz now on the circuit. I'm not expecting too much here. We'll just see if he actually goes on to do the lap, and it looks like he will. So this will probably be the one and only outing for Sainz in qualifying, and this is just for the benefit of getting P19 on the grid. I doubt we're going to see Kevin Magnussen do a proper time. He's still in the pits right now. Obviously, both of them taking new power units. They're starting at the back of the grid. Looks like the stream is working okay now, which is fantastic news, guys. So I do apologize for the technical difficulties. We have 7 minutes to go. And, of course, if you're just joining me, apologies for not being able to provide a stopwatch. Google have stopped running their stopwatch, unfortunately, that I normally use for the stream. So I'll have to find another one for the next quali stream next time. So I do apologise, but I will keep you updated nonetheless. Shiro in the comments saying, after the first 2 practices, it felt like Ferrari had a big advantage. Is the difference just them pushing more, or did Red Bull figure something out before the final practice? Well, whilst we're watching Sainz's lap, I can answer that question for you, Shiro. It's a very good question, of course. Obviously, the first 2 practice sessions are mostly, the first one is everyone sort of setting up their cars and making sure they're comfortable, etc., etc. Trying out a few things. If they've got new aero bits as well, trying to correlate the data between what they'll see at the factory versus what they'll have on the circuit. Practice 2 is more focused on the long runs. Once they've got their setups tuned in and dialed in a little bit more, they'll focus on the long run performance with a little bit of short runs early on, just to see where their quali pace might be. And then FP3 is kind of basically going over what they would have learned over the first day, sort of fine-tuning their setups again to make sure that they're happy with what they've got going into qualifying and the race. As Carlos Sainz just comes over the line, P3, and that should be enough to start P19 tomorrow, of course, with those engine penalties. So I don't think Magnussen's going to come out. That was just for the benefit of Sainz not starting dead last. And that probably will be the last we see of him. But it does solidify that Ferrari do have pace, and that this won't be a Red Bull walkover this afternoon. And yeah, and in FP3, Shiro, in answer to your question, anyone else that might be interested, normally what happens at this point early parts of the session, the teams will do a little bit more long run pace just to confirm that they're happy with their setup choices. And then towards the end of it, the last 15, 20 minutes, when the track is much more ramped up and much more suited to what we'll see in qualifying, then they'll do some quali sims at the end. And of course, during that time, they'll be doing lots of run on the development side. The reserve drivers may do, or development drivers may do some setup work overnight just to make sure if there are any issues. And that's usually what happens. FP3 is usually a good indicator as to where everybody is in terms of their quali pace. FP2 is more suited to the long run pace. So I hope that kind of answers your question to a degree. It looks like Red Bull yesterday did have some questions to find, but the teams are so good at being able to analyze this data and sort things out. It may be an answer as to why Red Bull were struggling in the main race in Austria, because they didn't have that extra time to sort of fine tune their car in between the sprint and the main race. So maybe that could have been a factor for that. Maybe it's a factor of why Ferrari was so good. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, as I said, hopefully that helps answer your question. And Shiro following up with ARB, so best to temper expectations to FP3. In a way, yes, at least for qualifying. But of course, we don't know what engine modes teams are running. We don't know what fuel loads teams are running. I mean, this morning, Ferrari looked like they were clearly second best. Might have to worry about Mercedes to a degree if they didn't hook it up. It looks like Ferrari have turned their engines up a little bit more. And as you can see, if you are watching qualifying with me, of course, I know some of you like to do that, that Ferrari are very much in the game in qualifying, at least as far as Charles Leclerc is concerned. And Carlos Sainz confirming that pace. Final runs now for Q1. We've got 3.5 minutes left to go. Again, apologies for not having the stop clock if you are just joining me. And thank you, of course, if you've just rejoined me on this stream. Of course, I had to cut the stream at the very, very beginning, owing to the fact that we had some technical difficulties, unfortunately. So I do apologise for that one, for those of you that were in that. But nonetheless, hopefully we don't have any more problems with this one in particular. Of course, if you do like what we do and you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Absolutely costs nothing to do that, and it helps the channel out massively. And just the notification, of course, we do some podcasts as well. We do race reviews and previews as well for every single race this season, and quali watch-alongs as well. And the next one, of course, will be the French Grand Prix race review tomorrow night. I believe it's probably going to be around 7 p.m. UK time. So yeah, make sure you join us for that one. And of course, get your thoughts in for the race, your reaction to tomorrow's race, and we'll read out and react to some of the best ones on the show, because you guys give some really, really good opinions and provoke some very good talking points that I do enjoy reacting to on the show. So make sure you join us for that and get your thoughts in tomorrow. Should be good fun as we approach the F1 summer break. And just over 2 minutes left to go. Some of the drivers out on track warming their tyres. Of course, a quick update on who is currently in the bottom 5 at the moment. Kevin Magnussen doing an outlap now. And whilst I'm a little surprised to see him, I can only imagine that's possibly to try and hinder one of their rivals if they can get through. Currently, the bottom 5 is comprised of Lance Stroll, Zhou Guanyu, Mick Schumacher, Nicholas Latifi, and Sebastian Vettel. And of course, Kevin Magnussen just coming out now. Just under 2 minutes left to go. Everyone ramping up now for their final runs. The only 3 drivers at the moment currently not on track are Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and Lando Norris. So we're just watching Zhou Guanyu now. Currently P16, 600ths of a second slower than Lance Stroll, the driver on the bubble at the moment. The Aston Martins, for whatever reason, seem to have fallen down the pecking order. They really have been struggling of late. Hopefully, maybe one of them can get through to Q2 at the moment. But we're following Zhou Guanyu on his final lap, just over a minute to go before the checkered flag, and he loses the back end a little bit, but just about holds it now as he goes down the long straight. But he's going to lose a lot of time coming down the straight, so this is really going to hurt him. Not quite sure if he's going to be able to recover that and improve as the track does continue to get better. But we'll have to wait and see now as it comes through the middle sector time, and he is currently half a second off a Stroll. And Alex Albon has lost it coming out of turn 10, but he manages to keep it going. So no yellow flags from what we can see at the moment, so everyone should be okay. There's always a worry when someone pushes it. I remember last season. Mick Schumacher binning it in the wall just before the end of Q1 and causing a red flag. But fortunately with Albon, he's not done that. So Zhou Guanyu can completely slap, and he has to go for it, but he's half a second down after that mistake he made in the middle sector. So this is going to have to be one incredible final sector if he's going to get through into Q2. He goes over the line now, and it's not good enough. He improved in the final sector, but it's a 1:34.0, so Zhou is out of qualifying. Next over the line will be George Russell, currently in P9, relatively comfortably through, but I don't think Mercedes will be happy about the fact that they're 1.5 seconds off the fastest time and currently well embedded into the midfield. But what can George Russell do? Goes over the line, stays 9th, improves, but stays 9th. So not much of an improvement from Russell. So that will concern Mercedes, because they would have hoped that this would have been a weekend where they would have been a little bit stronger. Yuki Tsunoda now coming across the line in P11 at the moment, goes across the line, does not improve. So we're not seeing a lot of improvements at the moment. Mick Schumacher has improved in Sector 1 and Sector 2. Stroll has improved in Sector 1 and Sector 2. Can he make the gap a little bit wider for him? He doesn't improve. Mick Schumacher, can he get himself out of the bottom 5? He does improve. P10 for Mick Schumacher. So he looks like he's going to be through. Vettel goes 11th. Sebastian Vettel goes 11th for Aston Martin. And Magnussen pops it into P6. This won't really matter much for Magnussen. He's going to be starting dead last anyway, but that now drops Ricciardo into the bottom half. Oh, sorry, bottom 5, I should say. And I think that's the end of session 1, guys. So just looking at a replay of Alex Albon, clips the curb on the inside of turn 9, completely loses the back end, and unfortunately ruins his qualifying. Albon out of qualifying as well. He's down in P16, unfortunately for him. So that's his qualifying session over. And just to recap now, the bottom 5 is Gasly, Stroll, Zhou, Mick Schumacher and Latifi. Ricciardo did improve and managed to get himself out. I think Mick Schumacher's lap has been deleted owing to a track limits breach because he's popped all the way down to P19. It's the only thing I can think of. And I believe that is the case. So yeah, Mick Schumacher thought he'd gotten through, but he ends up losing that time owing to track limits violations. So he is out of qualifying. And you can see the notification. Track limits at turn 3 for Mick Schumacher. And, well, considering where track limits at turn 3 would be, my only guess would be is that he just cut the corner on the inside. And that's really disappointing because he'd got himself well into the top 10. And after a couple of weekends where Mick Schumacher has really upped his game, that will really disappoint the Haas team, given the fact that his teammate, despite being 6th fastest in Q1, will start at the very back of the grid alongside Carlos Sainz. But of course, Magnussen, if he wants to, can partake in Q2 if he wants to out-qualifying Sainz, as does Carlos Sainz. So there might only be 3 spots up for grabs at the moment. But that is the end of Q1, guys. And just looking at the chats as well, AC92 Reds podcast, Liverpool Waste podcast, definitely check them out if you are a football fan or a Liverpool football fan as well, asking how was the stream. Well, you guys tell me. Hopefully it's better than what it was earlier. We did have a problem with the internet quality, but from what I can see, everything seems to be a-okay now. So I do apologise for the technical difficulties. Unfortunately, nothing I can do about that. But of course, that is certainly not your problem. That's my problem to deal with, unfortunately. George Allen in the chat. Hi, George. Saying Max champion in the comments. Well, Max at the moment leading the Drivers' Championship. Looking good despite the bit of a slump in the last couple of races. But still with a healthy lead in this Drivers' Championship. And all for Ferrari to do and Charles Leclerc to turn that around. But very encouraging stuff for Ferrari and Charles Leclerc. Fastest in Q1. Verstappen P2, Sainz 3rd, Perez 4th, as we expected. Ferrari and Red Bull right up at the front. Norris 5th, Magnussen 6th, Alonso 7th, Bottas 8th, Hamilton, Russell 9 and 10. Vettel in P11 for Aston Martin. So despite the fact that Aston Martin is struggling, Vettel still pulling it out when he had to. Ocon 12th, Tsunoda 13th, Ricciardo got himself out of it in 14th. Albon, owing to Mick Schumacher's track limits violation, he will be 15th. So he's through. So Alex Albon, despite the mistake, skims through the finest of margins, if you like. And then the bottom 5, just to confirm again, Gasly, Stroll, Zhou, Mick Schumacher, and Nicholas Latifi at the back end. But it was very, very tight. Just looking through the timing sheet, as you can see, 1 second covering Magnussen in P6 all the way to Latifi in P20. So not too much of a difference between them. And as you can see, really was something. I mean, Vettel was 11th. He was only 2 tenths, just a tenth and a half faster than his teammate. And that's the difference between going through and not going through in Formula 1. So very, very tight. Guys, let me know your predictions. I can see not too many predictions, so let me know your predictions. As I said, gone through our ones earlier. And as you can see, we're not expecting Carlos Sainz to complete qualifying. But if he wants to, he can. But it won't really make too much of a difference at the moment. He's really battling Kevin Magnussen. And we'll have to wait and see at this one. Mick Schumacher looking a little perplexed in the garage. He's out of qualifying owing to the fact that he had a track limits violation at turn 3. Haven't seen a replay of that, mind you, but it'd be interesting to see how he did it, because it's not an easy place for that to happen. But nonetheless, we'll have to wait and see if there's any replays that come up afterwards. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see, guys. But let me know your thoughts for this weekend as well. What are your predictions for the race? Because FP2 seemed to suggest that there's more team radio for Mick Schumacher. I can't quite hear what they're saying, unfortunately. I don't get the audio because it comes through in here. And I can imagine he's probably not happy at the track limits breach that has been awarded to him. Perhaps it's something they're going to try and contest. I'm looking at the replays now. As you know, there's not a replay. Sorry. What I was looking at was one of the mechanics in the garage was actually looking at a still image of Mick Schumacher where apparently he breached track limits, and it looked like his front tyres were inside the curb. Can't really see the rear ones. So that seems to be the reason why he's not going through, unfortunately. And yeah, it's a Mick Schumacher appealing. I don't blame him, because it's one of those where we had this last weekend, or last time out in Austria. Sergio Perez obviously breaching track limits in Austria, went through in Q2, and then of course had to have his lap time deleted after qualifying, by which time he'd already competed in a session that he shouldn't have been in. And let's see the replay for Mick Schumacher. So coming in now, and let's see. Oh, this is going to be very close. So he is inside on the curb on the replay on the front left tyre. So that looks like a slam dunk breach of track limits. But of course, we can't see the rear tyre. This is the problem. And normally the rules do say that all 4 wheels have to be off the circuit. You'd almost want to see the whole car. Anyone that's familiar with the F1 game will know this. So he's out of the car. Very unhappy about that. But yeah, to me, from the front of the car, it looked like he did cut the corner. And that's the end of his qualifying session. He's out of the car. The front nose has been taken off. And we're just starting Q2 now. So 14 minutes on the clock. We've just gone through the first minute now. Not much has happened, really. People just coming out of the garage on circuit. Again, apologies for not having the timer if you're just joining me. And let's see what happens. Will we see Sainz and Magnussen? You'd almost feel we might do, just for the sake of the two of them fighting. And I mean, to be honest, look, I don't want to advocate team orders or orders between teams, but you've got the connection and partnership that Ferrari and Haas have. Surely you'd think before qualifying, perhaps someone would have had a word and probably said, is there really any point them two, going out and qualifying just to fight for 19th and 20th? I know it all kind of counts. You don't want to be stuck behind another car if you don't need to, but I almost feel like Kevin Magnussen, he's been good, 6th fastest in Q1 on his first run, but unless something happens to Sainz, I'm not quite sure it's really worth his while trying to fight for P19. But nonetheless, he's gone out of the pits, on track now, and Carlos Sainz hasn't gone out yet, but I imagine Sainz will probably need the one run. Just a reminder, of course, for those of you that aren't familiar with how Q2 works, 15-minute session, we're going to lose the slowest 5 as we did in Q1, and the top 10 will go through. But of course, the tyre rule that we've had for some years now has been removed this year, and that is that the tyres that you set your fastest time in Q2 will be the tyres that you start the race on. That is now null and void. So everyone has a free choice of tyre that they can use at their own volition. We're seeing Lewis Hamilton now. Sir Lewis Hamilton, I should say. Always got to remember to get that right. On his first flying lap of Q2, looking pretty handy. Although the first session, Mercedes weren't quite at the top end of the midfield, or at least away from the midfield, as they would have hoped. So we'll have to wait and see if they've got a bit more pace up their sleeve. They certainly won't want to get down or bogged down in a battle in the midfield this weekend. They will be hoping that they can be, at the very least, on the third row of the grid. Perhaps fourth and fifth. That will be certainly the target. But under the cosh a little bit. We'll have to wait and see now, as Sir Lewis Hamilton on his first flying lap. Purple in the middle sector, green in sector 1 at the moment. George Russell behind him on track as well. Not as quick as Sir Lewis at the moment. Only about a tenth or so off of him, or just under a tenth actually after Q1. So very, very tight between the two Mercedes at the moment. McLaren, of course, upgrading their car. Daniel Ricciardo getting through very, very tightly indeed. Lando Norris has gone purple in Sector 1 and Sector 2, and he's 3 tenths up on Hamilton at the moment. So McLaren, these upgrades that they brought for this car that have been long overdue, definitely look like they might be doing the trick, as Hamilton goes fastest, 1:33.3. For context, it's 1.5 seconds off what Charles Leclerc was doing in Q1. So Mercedes, for whatever reason, struggling to find the pace when things are being ramped up. Albon, lucky to still be in qualifying, P3 with a 1:34.0. Russell 1:33.6 in P2. Tsunoda goes across the line, P4, 1:34.0 behind Albon. Norris, this should be the first representative time of the session, 1:32.7. Wow. It's a second off what we're expecting from the lead guys, but half a second faster than Sir Lewis Hamilton. So McLaren have found some speed. They're back where they feel they belong very, very quickly. So those are some upgrades right now. And Mercedes will be scratching their heads, thinking that perhaps they were half a second off the lead guys. They're much more than that. And they're not battling them right now. Leclerc does a 1:32.5. 8 tenths off his Q1 time. And yeah, 892 Red Podcast saying, love the new pedal camera. I love it too. Looks really, really good. Want to see it on some other cars as well. I've only seen it on the McLaren, particularly Norris at the moment. Perez does a 1:32.1. Verstappen, purple in Sector 1 as well. So Leclerc had a bit of a slow lap, but that time should be comfortable enough to get him through to Q3. The Ferraris and the Red Bulls are in a league of their own at this circuit. Verstappen does a 1:31.9, which is a tenth off when he managed in Q1. So, yeah, as we expected, the two Red Bulls and Charles Leclerc comfortably ahead. Ricciardo goes P5, 3.5 tenths off of his teammate, but faster than everybody else outside the Leclerc and the two Red Bulls. Magnussen coming across the line to set his time, goes 5th. So there certainly is some pace in this Haas, at least in qualifying trim anyway. Unfortunately for Magnussen, this is only going to be worth P19 or P20, depending on what Carlos Sainz does now, who is on an outlap. So those two are kind of in their own little battle, battling for P19 and P20 at the moment. We've got just under 9 minutes left to go. And we're just watching Carlos Sainz on board at the moment, seeing what he can do. And hopefully for him, it'll be a strong race tomorrow. His car's definitely going to be set up for the race tomorrow. A lot of concerns about the Ferrari at long runs with the front tyres. But they had a lot of problems with that last season. Really, really hurt them. But hopefully for them, they won't have such problems this weekend and that they can have a fair fight with the Red Bulls. Carlos Sainz will be hoping to make his way up the field. And looking at the pace that the Ferrari seem to have this weekend on everyone else except Red Bull, I wouldn't be surprised if they made their way through the field afterwards. Anyway, I digress on that one. On board with Carlos Sainz to see what he can do. As I said, this will only really be worth up to P19 for him, but we'll have to wait and see what he can do. And, yeah, we'll have to wait and see what he can do on that one, I'm afraid. Excuse me. So Sainz fastest in Sector 1, does a 22.6, so he is absolutely flying. So there's certainly pace in the Ferrari, and he has certainly found pace. That must be said. Carlos Sainz has really found some pace in the Ferrari this weekend. Unfortunately for him, and especially with his car setup, unfortunately for him, he's going to be starting at the back of the grid, so he'll be fun to watch. Won't be easy to overtake as well, must be said. But looking at the timing screens now, purple sector 1, purple sector 2 from Sainz, 3.5 temps up on Verstappen in the middle sector. I tell you what, I don't know what happened with Leclerc's lap, but Ferrari looking pretty handy at the moment in qualifying, judging by Sainz's pace at the moment. Have Red Bull got more up their sleeve? It could, well, it must be said that at the moment this is all a bit anticlimactic really with Carlos Sainz, because you'd put him in the mix for pole position right now, looking the favourite, but at the moment it's going to matter for nothing. But he comes across the line, a 1:31.0 for Carlos Sainz. Wow, that is impressive. 9 tenths faster than Max Verstappen. So Ferrari certainly have the speed right now. Unfortunately, it's set by the guy that's going to be starting on the back row of the grid. And for context, ladies and gentlemen, that's 2 seconds faster than what Mercedes are doing. And that is worrying. And obviously, this is a track that exacerbates strengths of cars more than others. But this is kind of the situation we find ourselves in right now in Formula One. Of course, where we were hoping that these new rules would bunch everybody up. It certainly has in the midfield, but Ferrari and Red Bull in a league of their own right now, especially Ferrari this afternoon, especially Carlos Sainz. So he will certainly be fun to watch in the race tomorrow if he keeps that pace up. And of course, if he manages his tyres, we'll have to wait and see. But that will be encouraging if you are Charles Leclerc sitting in the other Ferrari. Have Red Bull got anything to answer to that pace? Very interesting indeed. We'll have to wait and see how that all works out. Of course, this is just Q2. Top 10 drivers going through to Q3 at the moment. Just a recap now before, as everyone else is in the pits, except for Sainz who's on his in-lap. Just a quick recap of the running order. We have Sainz fastest of all at the moment, followed by the 2 Red Bulls, Verstappen and Perez. Charles Leclerc P4, Norris P5, Magnussen P6, Ricciardo P7, Alonso P8, Sir Lewis Hamilton P9, Bottas on the bubble in P10 with Vettel, George Russell, Ocon, Albon and Tsunoda making up 11th to 15th in qualifying right now. Just reading the comment section again. 892 Reds podcast again. Massive shout for Vettel. Didn't run in practice and could get Q3. Absolutely. I mean, must be said, yeah, Aston Martin really been struggling at the moment. And Vettel very close to getting in Q3 at the moment. That would be some achievement under the circumstances. Of course, Leclerc did his time on used tyres, it must be said. And of course, there's been a massive drop-off in performance. It looks like, given the nature of this circuit, the tyres just can't do 2 flying laps on. 4 minutes left to go in the session. We're in Q2 at the moment for the French Grand Prix F1 qualifying session if you are just joining us. Of course, if you like what we do, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. And of course, like the video as well. It really helps us out a lot. We've had some really good podcasts of late. And you guys have been absolutely mega for us of late. So we really, really appreciate your support. And hopefully you are enjoying what we do. We're certainly enjoying making more content for you. We've got plenty more to come. Of course, summer break coming up very, very soon. And we'll have plenty of good podcast episodes coming your way whilst F1 has its interlull period. And hopefully soon after the summer break, we'll have a brand new production for the podcast that we're certainly excited for you guys to see after the summer break, assuming everything goes to plan. Of course, we've had some technical difficulties today, so I can't guarantee anything, but that is certainly the plan right now, guys. And speaking of our plan, got Fernando Alonso out at the moment in P8 on his final lap. Verstappen, wheels off the car. P2 at the moment, 9 tenths of a second behind Carlos Sainz, who is currently out on his own in P1, although pretty much is all a formality for him. Leclerc and Perez now on track. They're both very safe, as I would say. As I said, the only guys that need to be out is pretty much Norris, Ricciardo, Alonso, Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel, Russell, Ocon, Albon, and Tsunoda. So basically, if you're in a Ferrari, a Red Bull, or Kevin Magnussen, you don't need to be on the circuit, to be honest. You guys are all safely through. Will be interesting to see what Leclerc can do on new tyres. And the Red Bull, they set their car up to be very good on the straights. And 892 Reds podcast, again, making a very good point. Max losing a lot of time in the slow speed corners. I mean, Sainz had half a second on him in the slower speed corners. And it's an area where Ferrari is so good, especially the traction zones. So we'll have to wait and see how that transpires in the race tomorrow. Ocon now coming across the line. Currently P13 in his home race. And yeah, there was also a moment where him, Alonso, and Vettel go 3 wide trying to find jockeying for position for the right piece of circuit. But nonetheless, Ocon now trying to get out of the bottom 5. His home race this weekend. The French would love to see him have a great result. Of course, Gasly out in Q1. Currently, Valtteri Bottas on the bubble in P10. 2.5 seconds off Carlos Sainz. And that's a very huge gulf between 1st and 10th at the moment. For context, the gap between 6th place and 20th in Q1 was only a second. And 2.5 seconds between 1st and 10th is incredible stuff. Anyway, Ocon now going through the middle sector. See what he can do. He's up in the middle sector. He had a bit of a moment going through his turn 9 and 10. But he's up on Bottas at the moment. It's very, very close. Vettel as well. Looks like we're on board with him as well. So we'll see how he can do. Can he get that Aston Martin into Q3? And given that he did no running whatsoever in practice, that would be one incredible achievement for him if he is able to do that. Have to wait and see now. Ocon going through the final few corners now. Coming up to the final corner. That's going to be an overtaking spot for tomorrow's race. We'll have to wait and see what interesting moments we'll get from there. Can Ocon get himself out of the bottom 5 for now? Albon improves. Ocon goes 6th fastest. So that final sector was very, very handy. It's very tight at the moment. Albon now relegated outside the top 10. He's probably out of qualifying. Can Vettel get through? He can't. P11 for Vettel. Bottas goes 7th. That now puts Alonso on the bubble now. The checkered flag is out, so everyone must complete their final laps. Tsunoda goes 6th fastest. That bumps Alonso out of qualifying for now. Ricciardo is on the bubble. Alonso goes 5th. That puts Magnussen on the bubble, although Magnussen is starting at the back of the grid anyway, as George Russell and Lewis Hamilton both in trouble now on their final laps. Russell must improve. He's 15th at the moment. Surely this will be enough to get him through. Only 6th fastest. Albon now down to 15th. Bottas now in the bottom 5. Magnussen right now only racing Carlos Sainz as Ricciardo goes 9th fastest. Ocon on the bubble, but Magnussen could send out the hometown driver if he improves, and looks like he's going to, and he's 7th. Ocon is out of qualifying at the moment. Ricciardo is on the bubble, so Lewis Hamilton has to improve as he goes over the line. He does. P5 for Hamilton. He's safely through. Tsunoda is on the bubble. Who else is on a lap? We've got Ocon, Bottas, Vettel, and Albon. I'm not sure if any of them are going to be able to improve. And it's unfortunately for the French fans, both of their guys failed to make it into Q3. And it's Ricciardo that will miss out. So just a recap, Charles Leclerc, meanwhile, went 2nd fastest, only a 10th off of his teammate Carlos Sainz. So that solidifies the pace Ferrari have at the moment. Can Red Bull respond? We'll have to wait and see. But just to recap the top 10, Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez, Hamilton, Alonso, Russell, Magnussen, Norris, and Tsunoda all through into Q3 with Ricciardo, Ocon, Bottas, Vettel, and Alex Albon out in Q2. So Yuki Tsunoda, despite his teammates' poor showing in qualifying at his home circuit, Tsunoda has pulled it out of the bag and he's through to Q3. So AlphaTauri will be delighted with that. So, yeah, great stuff from Yuki Tsunoda to really pull it out when they needed it. But bit of a scary qualifying there almost for Mercedes. But both of their guys safely through to Q3. And once again, Daniel Ricciardo, unfortunately, out of qualifying. But as you guys have pointed out in the comments, the track does look like it's improving. from what we've seen, Ferrari seem to have the advantage at the moment. Of course, let's not forget Carlos Sainz, no matter what happens, will be starting on the back row of the grid. Of course, could take a pole position today. Not sure if it would count as a pole position owing to his grid penalty. He might do. He might get the award for pole position. Not really worth anything other than bragging rights and just another thing to notch up. Obviously, might be important for him to try and get one over his teammate, but nonetheless, Ferrari will be hoping to at least have Charles Leclerc in pole position. We may see a scenario where Carlos Sainz might give Leclerc a bit of a tow in the speed traps to try and help him get a little bit more of an advantage over the Red Bulls. But right now, Ferrari looking pretty handy right now, it must be said. But last chance, guys, to get your predictions in for Q3. Who is going to be on pole position? Let me know. And another chance to get your top 5 in as well. So far, myself, my co-host Courtney and Lee, all of our top 5s are still in the hunt right now. So that's good. I think, unless I'm mistaken, I think in sprint qualifying in Austria, I was actually 5 out of 5 until Perez's lap time was obviously revoked owing to the fact that he shouldn't have been in Q3 in the first place. But yeah, I'm going to take that as a win for them. But we're interested to see if I get anything near that this weekend. But as you can see, we've all gone for the same 5 drivers, just in different orders right now. But Courtney's prediction for Charles Leclerc being on pole position may just come in. And for the benefit of the audience for this top 5, because Carlos Sainz is starting at the back of the grid anyway, any predictions that you put in, I'm going to say for the benefit of this stream, you don't need to include Carlos Sainz in your top 5, even though it looks on pace that he is going to be in the top 5. So you don't need to include him in your predictions. I will discount that for you if you like. And 1892 Res Podcast saying Sainz getting pole would be compared to Raheem Sterling scoring and then VAR to rule it out. And ain't that the truth? And he's also gone and said Max, Leclerc, Perez, Alonso, Norris in the top 5. And look, you can't count out Lando Norris. He has been very, very fast in the opening 2 sessions. McLaren have certainly found something for this car and have improved it. And it's brought them back in the game for P4 in the Constructors' Championship again. As I said, the team that will be worried the most probably be Mercedes, owing to the fact that they look like they were going to try and be clear of everybody else. And at the moment, doesn't seem to be the case. Nonetheless, Lando Norris through P9 in Q2. And we'll have to wait and see. So Lewis Hamilton put in a final run and he ended up 1.2 seconds behind the lead guys. So he improved quite a lot as the track started to ramp up. So we'll have to see what Red Bull can do as well. They certainly are in the mix this afternoon. And I think for Ferrari, they'll definitely want to try and get pole position this afternoon with Charles Leclerc. So we'll have to wait and see. But get your predictions in below. As we're about to start the final session of qualifying. Again, guys, if you've just joined the stream, I do apologise. Unfortunately, there's no timer. As I mentioned already at the start of the stream, Google, for whatever reason, they, well, pretty much have removed the timer. Don't know why. A bit strange. But there you go. Those are the breaks sometimes. And we're just watching, before the session starts, we're just watching Nico Rosberg as 1892 Red Podcast, the lineal champion. Right out the Tyson Fury playbook, I suppose. But yes, the 2016 Formula One World Champion offering his 2 cents, and not with the Sky F1 crew, owing to the fact, I think this is because of the fact he's not vaccinated. So I'm not going to speculate on that one. Leave that grenade on the floor. And yeah, let me know your thoughts, guys. What is going to happen in Q3? Is it going to be Ferrari? Is it going to be Red Bull? Which one's it going to be? It looks like it's going to be one of those two right now. I mean, they are in a completely different league to everybody else right now, it must be said. So we'll have to wait and see which one it's going to be. Kevin Magnussen doing a great job, despite the fact that he's going to be starting, looks like he's going to be dead last, has managed to get through anyway. It just shows how disappointing it was for Haas that Mick Schumacher had his lap time deleted, because I'm pretty sure he would have been in the mix. We'll have to wait and see now as Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz coming out of the garage. It'll be interesting to see what role Carlos Sainz now plays in this, because Carlos Sainz right now, the only driver he's fighting in qualifying is Kevin Magnussen. Owing to the pace advantage that he seems to have, I don't really expect him to worry about trying to get pole. I mean, he might do it for his own satisfaction and for his own, I suppose, bragging rights, if you like. And just to sort of remind Ferrari that he's got good pace. But I think it will be very important for Sainz to try and do the team job for Leclerc. I would expect Ferrari to try and see if they can orchestrate a scenario where Carlos Sainz is giving his teammate a tow down the straight. But we'll have to wait and see. So now qualifying's just gone underway for Q3. 12 minutes to determine who's going to be on pole position. And in reality, it's really only 3 right now. We've got Charles Leclerc and the 2 Red Bulls for Max Verstappen, the reigning and defending world champion, winner last time out in France from P3 on the grid, so pole position is not always important. And as you can see, Carlos Sainz letting the Red Bulls go and sitting in front of his teammate. So very interesting to see what happens now. How will Ferrari manage this? How will Carlos Sainz manage this? Because really, he doesn't really need to be out there. But, of course, whilst Kevin Magnussen is around, you don't really want to be starting last if you can avoid it. And it'll be very fun to watch to see how Carlos Sainz will try to manage his race tomorrow from the back of the field. That Ferrari looking absolutely rapid. I'm just watching Perez now leading a train of Sainz, Alonso and Leclerc. And you'd almost feel a little bit of gamesmanship going on here, guys. I think the Red Bulls in particular are very aware of what Ferrari may try to do here. Sainz very much allowing the traffic ahead of him to clear so that he's only got his teammate behind him. As you can see, Perez really slowing up the field. And remember, guys, there is a delta time here that these guys have to follow to avoid a scenario where everyone's holding each other up. And maybe what is going on here potentially is a scenario where perhaps we might be seeing Perez trying to slow down Sainz a bit too much so that it might compromise his teammate's lap at the moment. And that's what Ferrari seem to be doing at the moment. As you can see, Sainz letting through all the traffic he can that are trying to get their laps in purely so that he can assist his teammate. And I'm not surprised by that. The next guy behind Leclerc is Verstappen. I'm pretty sure Verstappen is certainly not going to want to get anywhere near involved in what the Ferraris are doing. But it looks like space has been cleared now. We've got the 2 Mercedes, of course, will be on their flying laps a bit further down. As Sainz now looking to shape up right behind the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda. So no doubt in my mind that Carlos Sainz looks like he's only going to be on the circuit to act as basically a slipstream remover for Charles Leclerc, because he's not backed up at all. So let's see how this goes. See what Carlos Sainz does. Of course, he's got his own times to worry about to try and get ahead of Magnussen. Whether or not Magnussen decides to actually even go out, we'll have to wait and see now. But Carlos Sainz following Tsunoda. So I'm pretty certain that hopefully, for Ferrari's sake, he will try and serve as an aid to his teammate now. He's well down in the first sector, so we'll have to wait and see what happens for Leclerc. Currently, we're on board with Sainz, so we'll have to wait and see. Sainz is only using half throttle, really, so surely he's going to be getting out of the way for his teammate, I'd imagine. Unless Ferrari are planning to have 2 warm-up laps. We'll have to wait and see now, as Sainz having a bit of a mistake there. As Perez goes purple in the middle sector, and you can see Sainz slowing right down. We didn't really see what happened with Leclerc. He must have overtaken him. Leclerc went purple in Sector 1. He's purple in Sector 2, Charles Leclerc. So it looks like the strategy may have paid off for Ferrari. We're waiting to see now the first times go over the line. Perez, I believe, looks like he might be the first person over the line. We'll have to wait and see what the time is. Verstappen went purple in the middle sector, so he beat Leclerc's time in the middle sector. Perez does a 1:31.6. And it's the fastest time he's done, but certainly down on what the Ferraris were managing earlier. Is Leclerc now the next guy to come across the line. Alonso is P2 at the moment. What is Leclerc's time going to be? It needs to be a good one if he's going to get it on pole position. A 131.2. Only a 131.2. Verstappen behind him. What can Verstappen do? Can he get himself in front of the Ferraris? He cannot. 131.217 for Verstappen. 8 thousandths off of Leclerc. Hamilton now. What can he do coming over the line? P4 for Hamilton. So that's probably, I'd imagine, the best that they could probably hope for this afternoon. George Russell, he goes P4. Very interesting. So he just shies his teammate by basically a fraction of a tenth. Norris goes P6 for McLaren. So gets himself right in there. Alonso P7, Tsunoda P8. Sainz didn't set a time. He went straight into the pit lane. So he's P9, Magnussen in 10th. And there you go. Shiro saying missed most qualifying. Well, you've joined us at the right time, Shiro. We've got 6.5 minutes left to go. At the moment, Charles Leclerc on provisional pole right now. Max Verstappen, 8 thousandths of a second. Leclerc didn't really put it together in the final part of the lap. They tried to use Sainz as a bit of a toe for Leclerc, which looked like it helped. But probably not as effective as Ferrari were hoping for, as Carlos Sainz actually set the fastest time in Q2. And as you can see, Leclerc, we'll have to find out what happened with Leclerc because, as you can see, so he got a bit of a toe coming up towards turn 11. And as you can see now, so Leclerc actually lost a little. I think he might have lost a little bit of time, perhaps. He got a bit of a toe there, going into Le Boursier with Sainz. So whilst that did help a little bit, I don't think the slipstream was as effective for Leclerc as it could have been. But we'll have to wait and see. But that is ultimately proven to have been the difference. That slipstream that Leclerc got is ultimately what's got him on provisional pole position at the moment. We've got one more run to go, 5.5 minutes left of the session. This is kind of the period of qualifying now where everybody comes in, changes their tyres, refuels, and then goes out for one final run. Will we see Kevin Magnussen? We'll have to wait and see. But at the moment, Charles Leclerc on provisional pole, thanks to his teammate. Certainly more pace in that Ferrari. Is there more pace in Verstappen's Red Bull? We'll have to wait and see, but he's P2 at the moment. Sergio Perez in P3. And then, of course, we've got George Russell, who popped in just ahead of Sir Lewis Hamilton, his teammate for Mercedes, comfortably 4th and 5th at the moment. And then we've got Lando Norris, P6 for McLaren, Alonso, P7, Yuki Tsunoda, P8. And then we've got Sainz and Magnussen behind him, who will be starting at the back of the grid anyway. So we'll just have to wait and see now. Sergio Perez coming out of the garage. The first man to set a time earlier. He'll also be the first man over the line, possibly. Charles Leclerc now coming out of the garage as well. Will Carlos Sainz also be out of the garage? He is. Carlos Sainz is ahead of him. So it looks like Ferrari are going to play the same trick again that they did on the first run with Sainz giving his teammate a little bit of a toe. I'm sure Leclerc will be hoping that it will be a little bit more effective, although that is ultimately what has got him provisional pole so far. And Leclerc will be hoping his final sector will also be a bit better as well, because it was a little bit lacking in there. Middle sector as well wasn't fantastic, and that's ultimately been, what has helped him get on pole position so far. Carlos Sainz has been absolutely mega fast, and if it wasn't for the fact that he would be starting at the back of the grid anyway, there's every chance that he may have ended up on pole position this afternoon. It's just how funny how that works sometimes. But anyway, we've got the slow outlap for these guys. Same thing that we had really in the first part of Q3, where we have the two Ferraris going round pedestrian-like together. And the plan pretty much will be the same. Sainz will try and give Leclerc a slipstream at the most opportune moment, which looks like on the run down to Le Boursier corner in the later part of the lap. But we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But guys, of course, let me know your final predictions now. Final chance, who's it going to be on pole position? Is it going to be Charles Leclerc, or is it going to be one of the Red Bulls? It looks like Max Verstappen 4 tenths faster than his teammate has the edge at the moment. Has often felt with Red Bull this season that Miles Perez has been very solid and reliable as a number 2 driver. Of course, winning the Monaco Grand Prix, getting a few good results when he's needed to. Does feel like the more that Red Bull develop this car, the further away it seems to get from Perez in terms of his competition with his teammate Max Verstappen. But they won't mind that. They have an established 1 and 2 pecking order in the team that everyone is rather happy with. And that is why they're winning both championships right now, both doing the jobs that they need to do, everything working as it should. And now we'll just wait for the final runs of qualifying. We've got Carlos Sainz right behind Fernando Alonso. And I'm pretty sure Carlos Sainz will just be doing as he was before, staying well away from his teammate up until the point where his teammate needs to get that absolutely precious slipstream, which is at the moment proving to be the difference now as we go to the final laps of this qualifying session. So Alonso goes through the final corner. Perez has now just started his final flying lap. Kevin Magnussen is still in the pits, and no matter what happens, he will start dead last tomorrow. Carlos Sainz will start in P19. But what can Carlos Sainz do for Charles Leclerc? What can Leclerc do? He has to put it all together. It looks like there's still time in the bag for Leclerc. Carlos Sainz this lap really doesn't really need to do anything. Leclerc at the moment is only now just coming up to turn 1. Sainz is up to turn 3 at the moment, so Sainz is really going to have to slow it down if he's going to be able to give his teammate the benefit of the slipstream. And Leclerc still has it all to do. The man that really puts it together in qualifying when it matters most. Now we're on the final runs here, just watching the onboard of Sainz, watching Leclerc. Leclerc goes purple in sector 1 for Ferrari, only 100th faster with only Max Verstappen behind him, so we'll keep an eye on what Verstappen does. It looks like Leclerc is going to catch Sainz in the same place that he caught him before. Verstappen is a 10th slower than Leclerc the first time round, and he was slower in the first sector than his own previous time. So I have to wait and see what Leclerc does. Does he get that toe off his teammate again? He does, but it's not a purple middle sector for Leclerc, but he's 2 tenths up on his own time. What can Verstappen do as Sainz gets out of the way just before Le Boursier at the perfect moment for Leclerc? Much better executed that time. Verstappen does not improve in the middle sector either, but he's basically just over a tenth ahead. So there's literally half a tenth in it between Leclerc and Verstappen. It's going to come down now to the final part of the lap where the Ferraris are often strong, but Verstappen can still pull it out as he did in Austria now as Perez goes over the line, only improves a few tenths but still P3. Leclerc, can he improve? He does improve. The first man into the 130s. Verstappen coming through the final corner. He's got a 1:30.8 to beat as Charles Leclerc smashes the time barrier. Will he improve? He does not improve. He does improve, but it's only P2. A 1:31.1. Hamilton over the line. Can he get past his teammate? He does. And that's a big improvement for Sir Lewis Hamilton. A 1:31.7. Just under 9 tenths off. Can Russell get past him? He improves, but he only stays P5. So Hamilton pulling it out of the bag when it matters most to get ahead of his teammate. Norris splits the Mercedes. P5 for Norris. He gets in between Hamilton and Russell. What a lap from Norris. Alonso P7, Tsunoda 8th. No time for Magnussen or Sainz. They'll stay 9th and 10th. But it is Charles Leclerc once again. When it matters most, Charles Leclerc delivers, I believe, his 8th pole position this season. And that could prove to be incredibly critical for the Monegasque Ferrari driving this championship. The Ferrari team, quite often in the past when they try to orchestrate the teamwork and the slipstream in qualifying, don't get it right. Today, they absolutely smashed it. And Leclerc equally smashing it to take another pole position in a season where right now the championship for him hangs on a knife edge. He needs to take advantage of every opportunity he can get. And he's put himself, thanks to his teammates' support, in a great place for Ferrari to win the French Grand Prix tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see how that goes down. But what an end to qualifying. Max Verstappen will be disappointed as he improved, but he wasn't spectacular on his final run. Perhaps it was a little bit too much for him today. Perez also equally better, but not quite good enough. But at the moment, those three look very comfortable for the podium spots as it stands. So Red Bull will obviously live to fight another day. And 1892 Reds podcast in the chat saying 16 pole positions each for Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. But of course, the most important thing is the race on Sunday. Can Leclerc convert pole to a win? Hasn't done that since the Australian Grand Prix earlier in the season, but he's put himself in a great position owing to the support of his teammate as well. So fantastic day for Ferrari. Will it be a fantastic day for them tomorrow? And let's not forget, Sainz incredibly fast in qualifying, set the second fastest time of the day. Only his teammate was faster than him, so Ferrari could have easily had a front row today. Alas, Sainz will have to do the racing from the back of the grid, so that'll be fun to watch as well. But guys, I hope that you enjoyed the stream. Again, once again, I must apologize for the technical difficulties that we had, which caused us to have to end the stream abruptly and then restart it. But for those of you that stuck with us throughout, I really want to say thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Again, if you are new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, of course, if you enjoyed what we do, and we will be back for the race review podcast of the French Grand Prix tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Sunday in the UK. So make sure to check that out, and of course, don't forget to get your opinions and comments in, which for what should be an incredible French Grand Prix. But until next time, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next DNF1 video. And remember, if you're not first, you're probably DNF1. Take care.